Hey, I just got my first viewer mail. It's a postcard. Oh, it's from my live-in girlfriend. Where did you go? I've met somebody else and I'm moving out. I left you all the ramen. Human subject 957 reporting for duty here at the Fake Museum, and man, I am starving. It's only day 8, but this month is moving slower than molasses, which, by the way, moves at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. On January 15th, 1919, things in the world were going really great. The Great War had just been downgraded to the Great Flu Pandemic, Teddy Roosevelt had just died, bringing his reign of terror to a swift end, and Romania had annexed Transylvania in what I can only imagine was an awesome battle between gypsies and vampires. Things in Boston, Massachusetts weren't much different. They were still drunkenly celebrating the 5th World Series win by the Red Sox a few months earlier, which they would continue to celebrate for another 86 years. But joy would soon turn to tragedy and say, "Hey Tragedy, I've been driving for a while, would you mind taking the wheel?" To which Tragedy would reply, "Sure, Joy, I got this." See, all the boozing being done by the Alkies in Boston was made possible by the sweetener molasses, a key ingredient in the fermentation of rum and various types of beer. And at 529 Commercial Street, right between the smokestacks and the horse stables, there stood a majestic 50-foot tall tank holding 2.3 million gallons of molasses. Folks would come from miles around just to marvel at its sheer glory, their mouths salivating as they daydreamed of billions and billions of gingerbread cookies. And in actuality, nobody paid any attention because it was a giant cast iron tank in an industrial district probably filled with even more giant cast iron tanks. But on that unseasonably warm January Wednesday in 1919, oh, they noticed. Shortly after 12 noon, the 2.3 million gallon tank burst for no discernible reason, though with all those drunks around, anything's possible. Rivets shot out of the tank like machine gun fire, and the ground-shaking rumble like a massive sweet-smelling fart could be felt from across town. But the pièce de résistance of this affair was the 15-foot wave of mutalasses that exploded forth. At 35 miles per hour, it was packing about the same pressure exerted by the impact of a fist in your face, if that fist were a 15-foot wall of boiled sugarcane. As a result, the wave had enough force to knock trains off their tracks and buildings off their foundations. At least 150 were injured, 21 people killed, and the horses, oh, the horses. The Army, the Navy, the police, and the Red Cross flocked to the scene and spent the next 4 days wading knee-deep through sticky, delicious hazards, searching for victims. It took another 87,000 man-hours to clean all of the surviving cars, buildings, and cobblestone streets in the vicinity, and I'm sure they tried their very best. But nowadays, that part of town still smells like molasses on a hot day, so we can only assume that they were still a little tipsy. The site where the 50-foot tank once stood is now occupied by a Little League baseball field, which is hopefully, for the sake of the kids, exempt from the curse of the Bambino. Speaking of drunks, 100 years earlier and across the sea, London, England experienced its own epic food disaster, this time in the form of beer. In 1814, while the British were failing to successfully invade Baltimore, they were also failing to keep their beer vats in London successfully holding beer. On October 17th, at the Mille & Company Brewery in the parish of St. Giles, a vat holding 135,000 gallons of ale ruptured. 135,000 gallons, you might say. Ha! That's nothing! I drink 135,000 gallons of beer for breakfast. Well, if you would let me finish, those first 135,000 gallons merely set off a chain reaction of bursting beer vats in the room, sending a total of 323,000 gallons of beer through the walls and into the streets. And when I say through the walls, I mean it wiped out 2 homes and buried a 14-year-old girl under the rubble of a pub she had been working in. In addition to underage barmaids, the flood led to at least 7 other casualties, which was of no concern to the locals, who literally ran out into the streets with pots and pans to collect beer like a bunch of drunks from Boston or something. Now, a beer explosion may not be as sweet-smelling as a molasses explosion, but nothing says sweet-smelling than an explosion of sweet smells themselves. Now I know, after the Boston molasses disaster and the London beer flood, you were probably hoping to hear about something with more fatalities like the famous Los Angeles buttermilk debacle. But, you savages, Mom always said that if you can't talk about a nice food disaster, you shouldn't talk about food disasters at all. That brings us to modern-day Chicago, where the pizza is deep, the hot dogs are covered in salad, and the bridges smell like chocolate. For over 70 years, the Blommer Chocolate Company has been making chocolate from the crossroads of the Chicago River, its scent wafting down the waterways and launching commuters and pedestrians alike into a confection-driven frenzy of love and joy. That is, until one anonymous tipster morally superior to you filed a complaint with the EPA in 2005, who was forced to make the Blommer Chocolate Factory knock it off. The aroma isn't nearly as prominent these days, but my theory is that it went to New York. Around that time, Lower Manhattan experienced its own dessert-like fragrance. It showed up at about 8 p.m. on a Thursday night, took over the city, and then after about a day, disappeared as mysteriously as it had arrived. Nobody figured it out until me, just now. Finally, the last item here at the Epic Food Disasters exhibit, it appears as though somebody once made olive jello. That might be the worst one of all. If you'd like to learn more about epic food disasters, look it up, and if you already know more, leave your wisdom in the comments. Human Subject 957 here, signing off.